introduction and welcome everybody. This is PnP Weekly episode 220. It is 2nd of October. Woohoo! 2023. Hey! Autumn is coming. Winter is here. Winter is coming. Right, Waldek? Excitement.
Autumn is here.
Yay!
Autumn is here. The winter is coming.
Yes. The sun sets already at 7 p.m. in our place, which is pretty horrifying. Or 6:45, which is, now it starts again. And it's only October, November, December, January, February, March, and April. Maybe spring is back. So spring is back.
Okay.
Light is coming.
You're counting down towards spring and light. Okay, fair enough.
Yes, exactly. So 6 months of awesomeness, 6 months of darkness. So welcome to Finland. This is paid advertisement, right?
Yes.
Now. Cool. So on today is 2nd of October. We are on the last quarter of the calendar year, which is actually pretty cool. So
yes, year is officially 75% done.
Correct. That is correct. Yeah, I saw the tweet as well. That was actually kind of a good reminder. Now, this week, in the PnP Weekly, I always talk about the latest on Microsoft 365 and related technologies, touching all of the other Power Platforms and all of things. We typically have a visitor. We always have a visitor, pretty much, and then we
unless
cover
we don't,
the latest
otherwise we do.
Articles. Yes. And we typically do this in weekly, unless we don't, but then we don't, and so.
Yes.
Cool. This time, who was our visitor? We recorded this a bit earlier last week. So our visitor is
Mr. Antonio Maio, who is a managing director with Protiviti in Canada.
Yep, that was a nice discussion. And we'll move into the interview in a second. Antonio used to work in Texas, moved back to Canada, family reasons and all of that, and focused on Microsoft 365 areas. And really, really cool discussion on many, many interesting topics. Without taking any more time on the intro, let's jump on the interviews and we'll come back on the weekly articles right after. Excellent. Let's get moving. So thank you, Antonio, for joining us on the PnP Weekly episode 100 and 220.
20, yes.
220. Yes.
220.
But Antonio, let's start with the basics. Who are you and what do you do for a living?
Okay, so first of all, thank you both for having me on your podcast. My name is Antonio Maio. I'm a managing director with a global consulting firm called Protiviti, and I lead our technology consulting practice across Canada. So I'm based in Ottawa, Canada, 12-time Microsoft MVP, so I've been part of this great MVP community for a long time. Still very much enjoy it, like being part of that community and just the shared experiences we get to have together. And Waldek, I met you as part of the MVP community way back, and I think at a summit one time. And Vesa, I've seen you present many times. I've enjoyed many of your presentations, and just great to be here with you both.
Thank you.
Well, what does you said managing director, if I remember now correctly. What does that mean in practice? What does it mean for day-to-day work?
So for day-to-day work, I find it really interesting. I have been fortunate to be able to actually build the practice here in Canada. So I started with Protiviti, where I used to live in Dallas, Texas. I lived there for about 4 years, and then moved back to Canada.
That's a bit of a change, right?
Oh, it's a huge change. Yeah. Moved back to Canada in 2017, where my family and I are originally from, to be closer to family. And in doing so, I was the only technology consulting person. So Protiviti has other lines of practice like internal audit and financial audit and that kind of thing, but I was the only technology person. So I got to start and build the practice. And as a managing director now, I get to continue to find new areas where we can service our customers with technology. Our team in Canada is a Microsoft team, so we do all things Microsoft 365 and Dynamics 365. I get to hire people, find work, build the practice, build a team, build a community within our team in Canada, which is part that I like. I really enjoy building up this team and finding people that like to work together and finding new technologies and new ways that we can work together.
Yeah. You used to be very much immersed in tech in the past, I recall. How much of that is left nowadays?
That's interesting. I was very much immersed in tech. I still am today, actually, amazingly. So I'm in the process of making this transition, which is hard for me, of doing less on the tech, more on the team building, more on the building community within our company, and finding new ways that we can service our customers, building customer relationships. So, our team is big enough now that I have to let go of some of that tech work and rely on my team. And I've been fortunate to build a good team that I can trust. And so that makes it easy, but it's still not easy for me. I'm still very involved in the technology.
Oh, but I guess like even though you don't get to play yourself, I can imagine that you've got opinions on things, on things that have been shipped, the way things evolved over the years. So I wonder, like, what's your take on that? How do you see the change over the last few years, and where we are now in the next wave that's coming?
So that's a great question, Waldek. I have been very opinionated in the past on how the technology has come out. I have liked working with much of the Microsoft technology over the years. I started as a SharePoint MVP, which I think you did as well.
Correct.
And, a lot of the technology was great. Some of the technology was not so great. We kind of made do with what we had. We found ways to fill the gaps. And we, as part of the MVP community, got to give feedback to Microsoft to help improve the product. I think we've gotten to a level of maturity in the product where now we're starting to see more, I want to say advanced and I don't know what the right word is, but beneficial, higher level technology getting layered on top of the fundamentals. I feel like we've got a really good fundamental base of technology, and Microsoft 365 in particular, with SharePoint and services and Teams and Exchange. I think all of those have matured, and now we're starting to see stuff get layered on top of that gives us a lot more benefit. Things like Syntax and Copilot and these things that are really exciting, and we're still trying to figure out how it's going to affect our work day to day. But yeah, I still tend to be opinionated, but I've learned to appreciate how difficult it is to bring some of this stuff to market.
Yeah, it will. Yeah, it's an interesting. The maturity level, as I said, has evolved a lot since you started as an MVP, as an example, because even the partner ecosystem wasn't that skillful, and they didn't have the technical expertise, and then Microsoft had more of those employees who were basically training people, and now the ecosystem is much more skillful. And of course, how do you see the transition from a technical consulting more to the business consulting? Is this an opportunity for partners, or is it a less business, or what does that mean? Have you seen that transition?
I think it is a real opportunity for partners. There is less of the technology for us to do. There's less of obvious technology for us to do, right? Like you think about Copilot and how do we consult on Copilot, right? You turn it on, you buy licenses, you assign licenses, people start using it. Like, where is the consulting services in that? Well, if you think about it,
I've got some ideas.
That's what I was going to say. It's not obvious, but there is a lot that can be done in that space. So I think, Vesa, to your question, we need to get a bit more creative about where we bring in consulting services. And I think that brings up interesting opportunities for partners, right? With Copilot, for example, we consult on policy work. And okay, what kind of policies should you have around the information people should share within Copilot? Helping people to understand the isolation of information and the security of your information with Copilot, and helping people to clean up and govern their security and their permissions so that turning on Copilot doesn't become like turning on Delve. You know what I mean?
The classic example. Absolutely.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. We just need to be a bit more creative about it. It's, we're not setting up servers anymore, which we used to do a lot of. We're not configuring user profile service. True. All that kind of stuff.
That was a lot of repeated work, right?
Yes.
So it wasn't really creative work and creative consulting. It was just a let's set up the things. Are you basically also, is that still a growing, or is it a growth area for partners? Is it you said that it's an opportunity. Do you have any good examples, kind of a high level? You don't need to share your business insights too much, but how has your consulting business in Canada, for example, transformed? What are the things what people do?
So we do a lot of work both in the public and the private sector, so government and non-government, and I'll kind of address those separately. In government, they're figuring out, and this is where there's been a lot of opportunity for us, where it is a growth area. They need a lot of help figuring out, and I don't mean that to sound badly, but they do need help figuring out how to operationalize the M365 services. how to consistently apply them across, there's 98 different federal government departments in Canada, for example. They all have their own separate tenant. So how do you manage those consistently across an employee base of 400,000 people? So they need help with operationalization of the services, roles, responsibilities, governance. We've been talking about governance for 12 years at least, and there's still a lot of work in that space. So that's one area that is still growing in my view, especially as the new services get layered on top of it and how AI gets injected and changes the way of work. So there's a lot of work there. And then we see similar work on the private sector side where they are very focused on the security capabilities within the platform, the compliance capabilities within the platform, figuring out what do you roll out first, what do you roll out next, what are the fundamental pieces and what are higher level pieces that can come later. So in terms of Microsoft Defender and Microsoft Purview, there's tons of work in those two spaces as well. So all of those are growth areas for us.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense. There's so many products and services. It was so easy at the time whenever we had SharePoint.
Yeah.
We had only had
do
one
you recall
product.
Circle
Exactly,
thing?
the pie.
And for each element, you had like this thick book.
Yeah.
Yep. True.
So I don't know if it was easier, and that was only that. And then you also had servers, meaning you had SSRS, reporting services, you had
That's right.
SQL, which you had to optimize,
That's
you
right.
had Windows Server, you had your AAD or AD. Well, so I don't know. I wouldn't say it was easier, to be honest.
I agree. From a technical standpoint, we used to spend so much time deploying and configuring servers and services, and down at that low level, and farm admin accounts and debugging user profile service, transparent encryption on the SQL servers. It was just, we don't have to do any of that anymore, which
the memories.
I'm happy about. I'm happy we don't have to do any more of that.
True.
Because we do get to be more creative, I think, to your point earlier, Vesa.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you miss those, you're missing those Sunday afternoons, upgrading customer farms and running the configuration wizard and getting failures, and you have no idea why it failed, but
That's
you have
right.
like 8 hours time to get it back online before 8 a.m. in the morning and whatever.
As long as your central admin server didn't fail, it wasn't that bad, because you could always bring in content.
Still log in.
But the central admin, that was, let's not let the config DB just not corrupt, right?
Yeah. And referring to Todd Clint's blog on patches every single month. I don't know if you guys remember that, but he did amazing work just keeping up to date with patches and patching servers. And they were a godsend, those blogs.
True.
Going more forward to now, leaving the past with on-prem servers behind us. You mentioned few things. One that was really, really interesting for me was the fact that we need to be more creative. And the way I see it is that you said, in the past, a customer asked us to build something, and because the product didn't do everything, we was like, you asked us to build this, we will build this. And that was kind of the scope of work. But now, as products that we offer at Microsoft evolved, and also maybe the customer's requirements change, you mentioned an interesting thing where we need to be more creative about offerings that we build, services that we provide. I can imagine that a big part of that is, first of all, staying up to date on what's out there, what's possible, and then forming an opinion on that. That is already like a full-time job. How do you go about it?
That's a great question. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. The staying up to date with all of the technology advancements that are coming, not just in I follow both of you, for example, on Twitter and LinkedIn and a number of other Microsoft folks. I watch the message center within M365. I go to conferences not only to speak, but also to hear about what's being spoken and to network and partner events. And I'm part of several partner groups at Microsoft where we're fortunate we get to receive a lot of early info. It's a lot of time and energy, and I find to do it effectively, you have to have a real kind of passion for it. You have to really be interested in it. It's not, for me at least, it's not just a job. It's something I truly enjoy doing. Like every night before going to sleep, I'm reading things on Twitter and trying to stay up to date with tech, right? Because it's something that interests me. It's hard to do that if you don't have an inherent interest, but companies still need to do that. So Waldek, I find there's two kind of at a high level, two different reasons for doing that. One is us as consultants staying up to date with the tech, trying it, experimenting with it, forming an opinion. And I find to get a really good opinion, you have to actually try it, right? It's not enough to just read the article and have an opinion. I do think you have to actually try and play with these things and test them. But then also the second thing is so that we can keep our customers up to date into what's coming, right? There's a few customers we have that have very large M365 environments, and our company as well. We have 23,000 users in our tenant. And we find the demand of changes, and we think of it as demand, comes from, Microsoft forced changes, Microsoft optional changes and new features, and then all the stuff that employees ask for. Hey, can I have this app? Can you turn on transcription in Teams? And can you, turn on this other feature? Because I've heard it's coming because I read about it on Microsoft blog. Managing all of that really does take some serious governance structure and ownership around the platform. So we help to advise customers in that area, as well as just stay up to date with it ourselves. But it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, it is. And do you have with your group or a group of folks around you, do you have like a, call it think tank, where you get together in a group and it's like, hey, so we've seen this announcement or feature. What do we think? Like, what is our collective opinion on that, and how do we embed it into our work? Do you have sessions like that? Do you organize something with a group of folks?
We do. It's a little bit sporadic right now within our company, and we're trying to get that a little bit more organized. We think of those as centers of excellence, if you will. So we've had a center of excellence around AI, for example, in last year or two. We've had a center of excellence around syntax and, managing that a little bit differently from AI, because there's a lot that syntax can do. We've got another one on the Power Platform, and it is a group of interested folks that get together and talk about the things that have come, how we can integrate them into our work, just, internally to be more efficient, but then also our offerings to our customers. So yeah, they're not as formal as I would like. And formal is not the right word. They're not as structured maybe as I would like, but we're all busy with other stuff too. So we kind of do it off the side of our desk,
Yeah. And you mentioned in there, go on.
Oh, I was just going to think Microsoft. And Microsoft, you guys must have something like that. You develop the products, but you also use the products yourselves. You must have some things like that.
We are a big place. We have many groups of people.
And in Finnish, at least, we have the saying that shoemakers' childs don't have shoes. So, so the fact that we tell people to do certain things doesn't always mean that we do certain things. And certain organization and teams, absolutely, 100%. But it is such a massive organization, so everybody works a bit differently. So we have nothing to do with me and Waldek, for example. So organizationally, we connect at Satya level. But in a friendship level, I guess it's fine to say, Waldek, after all of these years, we connect a bit more frequently. But it's interesting. So it's such a huge organization. So.
Yeah. Now you mentioned this one word, two-letter word. You addressed the elephant in the room, AI.
Yes.
How has it changed your work, your service offering, the way you think about engagement, the way you plan for the next year? It came what it seems to be out of the blue.
Oh yeah.
Less than 12 months ago. Well, of course, it wasn't out of the blue, but
February.
It came to the big exactly.
Feels like.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good question. So it has changed our conversations dramatically. Like, I'm amazed at how, and I mean this as a compliment, how Microsoft has taken all of the marketing air in the world on AI. People don't even remember what Google's AI platform or equivalent is called, let alone that
AI.
Have one. Exactly. Yes. So I'm amazed at how much Microsoft has kind of taken that by storm. And so many of our customers, even our own internal executives, are asking, okay, so what are we doing with AI? Like literally around the board table. What are we doing with AI?
Very broad, right?
Very broad. How are we using it in our company? How are we using it to get more efficient, to get better, to work with our customers better? So we are having a lot of those conversations with our customers and with Microsoft, working to get into several of the partner programs around it, because they've been, fair enough, the technology is early, but they've been, fairly closed preview programs right now. I think they're just about to open up, and M365 is about to go GA November 1st, which is M365 Copilot about to go GA November 1st, which is excellent. It's been an interesting transformation because AI used to be the domain of data scientists, right? For example, my brother is a researcher at SAP. So he will get literally tables with 300 million rows of customer data. He will develop models in TensorFlow, run them against it, and then use that to classify large amounts of data. That's what data scientists would do. That's where AI fit, right? You had a neural network, you had some good machine learning algorithms, deep learning algorithms that would, do things, classify or categorize your data was one of the key use cases. Now with this transformation to generative AI and large language models, so it's still, deep learning, machine learning, but in a different context with multiple large language models behind it, gives you this conversational experience that has brought AI to everybody. We all now have the ability in our day-to-day work multiple times a day to have AI help us in what we're doing, right? I was away the last day, prioritize my emails and tell me the top 10 I need to reply to, and boom, it does it. And it just helps us be more efficient. So just almost every single customer is asking about how they integrate it in. So we have developed various offerings where we would help customers get ready for it, understand it, adjust their policies for it. And this is both in private sector and public sector. I do think the public sector is a little bit behind because they're still trying to get some of the fundamentals deployed with some of the customers that I work with, but it's coming. It's not that far behind. So it's made a big change since February. Copilot was only announced in February.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? And I guess the Copilot and ChatGPT is really, again, the NLP, the natural language processing capabilities, they're just mind-boggling because you cannot really tell, is it a human or is it a computer? And that made it truly mainstream. That, as I said, we've been having AI for decades already. So it's not like this is a new thing, but it all of a sudden everybody is just, we need to do AI. What do we need to do? What do we mean with we need to do? What are you thinking? I don't care. We need to do AI. Okay.
Exactly. Well, we also, with some of our customers, we take that a step further, right? Where it's not just about rolling out Microsoft 365 Copilot and the built Copilot chat experiences. It's also some of our customers have their own line of business applications. The classic example is a customer support organization, and they want to build a ChatGPT-like or a Copilot-like experience into that application. So we will use Azure OpenAI Service to actually build that kind of experience on their own application. Using large language models and their data. And then we'll go even further and use some of the other Azure cognitive services and machine learning workbench to actually train our own models for those as well. And those are bigger, longer term projects. They're fewer, certainly because they are so big, but some organizations want to go that route.
Yep.
Yeah, but it has taken over a lot of the conversations, to your point, Waldek. It is amazing how it has transformed a lot of our day-to-day work.
In a good and a bad way as well, because of course in a good way in the sense that AI is absolutely transformational and once in a 15-year, like Satya keeps on saying, a situation. But then at the same time, it seems to be a bit delaying even some investments now that everybody's like waiting on what does the AI mean? We were planning to do this, but no, that's not important yet because we need to do now this AI thing. So. It's interesting to see where we are within 12 to 18 months from now when situation hopefully a bit more realized and we kind of realized what is the value out of it, and then we'll rethink what it actually means for us. So.
Well, but I guess even then we'll have GPT Turbo 25.
Yep, absolutely.
And there will be new models, new opportunities, DALL-E 8.
There's always new opportunities, but I think that the initial transformation happens when you ship the Microsoft 365 Copilot and, every single user starts using an AI and it comes to be more natural for them. 5 years from now, I don't think we'll even realize that we're using AI because it's part of the, like you say, Antonio, on prioritization of emails. I've been using AI today to catch up some of the meetings which happened during nighttime. It's a great example of an AI which is completely abstracted. So I don't know that I'm using an AI, but I am actually using AI because I can be more efficient with the Teams meeting recap. So.
Well, it's really interesting also to understand the differences between ChatGPT and Microsoft's Copilot. Like for me, a key difference, if you look at ChatGPT, right, it was trained on data, correct me if I'm wrong, up until 2021, right? So unless you're using plugins,
September 2021,
exactly, it's not going to know anything after September 2021,
correct.
Right? It uses the large language models and it is optimized to give you a conversational response, not to give you accuracy. Right? It doesn't know what is true and what is not true. Whereas with Microsoft's Copilot, I love the fact that it uses those large language models, but then also uses your data within your tenant, right? That combination of those two just opens up a huge world of possibilities. Just the experience of take this 100-page document and summarize it in a 10-slide deck is incredible that it can do that.
You mentioned there an interesting point, right? Because you mentioned that it has access to the data that you've got in the workplace.
Yes.
But that is only one side of the work, right? Because then you also have something you mentioned earlier, which are the LOB apps, right? And to truly get the return on that AI investment in your work, you want it to be able to reason over both of them, over the files, the documents you create, but also the LOB, the contracts you've got, the product SKU, the support info you've got. So do you see when you talk to customers, do you see them think already along these lines, like how they're going to let Copilot reason over these two things? How are they going to bring these external systems into AI? Or is it still like one step too far because they first want to just try what is available out there out of the box?
Well, there's both discussions that happen. They do want to try what's out of the box. They've seen the videos. They want to, they're a little skeptical. They want to see and feel that it's real, right? So they do want to evaluate it, but then they are thinking further ahead around how do we incorporate this into our business flows, into our data? And sometimes that does require bringing their data into M365, which you can do with connectors, right? So they are thinking along those lines, but I think they see that a little further out. First, they want to evaluate how real is this Copilot thing that I've been saying everywhere. And then they want to, we're also having the conversations of, okay, how do I integrate it into my business flow? And to that point, like one of the Copilots I'm really excited about is Security Copilot, Microsoft Security Copilot, because it doesn't only use large language models, right? It uses your signals coming from Sentinel, from Defender, from Intune, from the Microsoft Threat Intelligence Network, pulling all that together to help you, find the most prevalent threats in my network. Reverse engineer this piece of malware that we found and actually have it create you a diagram of the kill chain is phenomenal. Like if you think about the efficiencies that brings to a SOC team, that's going to be transformational.
Yeah, because again, like if there's one place where you are really exposed to volumes of stuff, it's exactly that, right? Yeah. You have logs, you have massive amount of info, and then
that's right.
Well, good luck classifying that and finding out or finding the needle in the haystack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, I wanted to ask actually something. Let's get Copilot AI, absolutely brilliant, yes. But let's go back in time a bit. You said that you actually work in Texas and moved back to Canada. Can I talk about big differences between the culture in Texas and Canada? It's completely the same, right? So
not at all. So my family and I really enjoyed living in Dallas. We were very fortunate. We were in a great neighborhood with great schools, great friends. The Microsoft community there was excellent. It took a little while once we were settled there, but started to try to participate in the community whenever I could. Had little kids at the time, so timing was a little bit tough, but culture is quite different. Let's see, what can I tell you about the culture? Texas gets a bad rap, I find, in the media that's not deserving in many cases. People are friendly. They're fit, they exercise, they work out, they look after each other. They go out and they have fun on weekends, right? The weather is fabulous 10 months of the year. And if you really like the heat, it's 12 months of the year usually, or 11 months of the year. So you can get outside a lot. Canada, our weather, I think, is a little bit more like Finland. Vesa.
Yep.
It's a little
Yep.
colder, right? Where we can get out,
10
6 months of the
in
year.
a year, it's
Autumn
bad
is
weather.
happening. Yeah.
And if you like cold, it's 12 minutes.
That's right.
I hate cold, but yeah, anyway, that's
So
a different
do I.
discussion.
So do I. My dad is from Sicily. I prefer the heat. So
Yeah.
We miss Texas and we miss a lot about what we were living there, but we're happy to be back here and close to family.
Yeah.
I find Canada is a friendly community. We learn to deal with the cold. Some people really like the cold. I find here in Canada, you have snow on the ground almost 6 months of the year.
Yep.
And to survive that happily, at least for me, you have to find an outdoor winter sport that you like to do that gets you outside regularly.
Shoveling.
Otherwise, you hold up in shoveling.
Sure.
I have a snowplow come and do my driveway. I don't shovel anymore. I did that for years as a kid, but not anymore. But yeah, I would say, the cultures aren't that different. We focus on different things. I find the people in Texas are very friendly. They're very welcoming. They do like to, they like their rights. They stand up for their rights, I'll say,
Yep.
which is good. But nothing but good things to say about living there. Yeah, it was a big change for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, and of course for the family as well. And then the implications are pretty huge.
School and
Yeah, they're safe. Yeah, I can imagine. Even though, of course, in our family, we've been having long discussions every now and then, not anymore that much on the, moving to Seattle or not, and it's complicated. So there's multiple variables to consider. It's always incredibly complicated. So
yeah, I've been through those discussions. We actually moved to Texas for my wife's work at the time. She got a great promotion in her job, so I left mine. We made this move. And I found a great opportunity where I am now, and I'm fortunate to be able to still work there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You are also an MVP, and you've been MVP for quite a few years.
12 years.
How many years? 12?
12 years.
12.
Yeah.
Wow, time flies.
Yeah.
Do you recall when you got your first award, and how did that feel, and how did you, what has changed over the course of 12 years? That's a long time.
Oh, yeah. I do remember the first award because I didn't think that I was going to get it, right. I had learned about the SharePoint community. I was doing work in SharePoint at the time at a product company, and I'd learned about the SharePoint community and gone to some conferences and was just amazed how close-knit this community was, how you saw the same people at conferences, all as experts and blogs, and you didn't have as many podcasts at the time, but videos and demos and
blogs, right? Like that was really the time of blogs, 2011. Yeah, 2010.
Yeah, it was. So I remember the first award. I was very surprised. I was very happy and proud as well to receive that in the mail. And that's when we got a big box, if you remember, Waldek. We had a big box with the certificate and the first trophy and the little puck on it. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I see the certificate actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was very proud of that. And I've been fortunate to be able to continue that. You have to resubmit all of your contributions every year, and I still do that, and I still enjoy making contributions. Some years you do more contributions than others, right? Life does take overs, but you try to keep a certain level so that you're connected to the community. We've made great friends through this community, right? Some of my best friends in the world are from this community, which is great. We see each other at conferences, and we hang out, and it's a lot of hard work, but it's a lot of fun too. This year I have some renewed energy in the community. I've started blogging again, and I've put out a number of blogs this year. Yeah. My blogs always tend to be long, and I've tried to shorten them down a little bit so they're a little more consumable, not as technical.
Part 1, part 2.
Yes, exactly.
See what you did there?
Yeah. So yeah, I still enjoy the program, still part of it. This year we got to have MVP Summit in person again, which is awesome, right? It was hard during COVID doing it remotely. It's not, you don't get that networking connection.
It's different, for sure.
It is. Yeah. It is.
I'm just watching the dates. We should have some good news pretty soon for next year's MVP Summit, which is positive. So early on. So that's great.
Okay, that's great.
It's going to be on a Tuesday. Maybe.
No, I think the related on that one, one of the challenges for this year, I know a lot of MVPs would have loved to be there, but we actually announced the MVP Summit pretty late, and that also meant that people were unable to reschedule. And flying across the pond is a bit different than doing North America in general. So
that's right. Got to meet some new MVPs at the last summit in person, which was really nice. Like we've seen over the last couple of years in COVID, several new and dare I say younger MVPs come into the program.
It's not the age. It's not the age. It's just the mental mindset. So
thank you. I appreciate that, Vesa. But got to meet some of them in person and just feel that energy about how excited they are about the program and to be there. So it was nice to see that, right? It kind of helps renew our energy in the program when we've been in it for a few years.
Absolutely. And now, and as part of this transition also, it's really cool to see more on conferences coming back. And to be honest, personally, I still miss the big ones like Ignite when it was huge, because those are the feeling when you're sitting in a room with other 20,000 people. It's a bit different than it is in.
And you learn about new version of SharePoint server, and you're like,
yes. That's right.
And you know that when you're back, there will be a new bulk of MSDN DVDs waiting for you.
That's right.
And I was referring to 2018, or 2018 was Orlando, wasn't it? Ignite 2018, 19.
Possibly.
2019 also.
Yeah, 2019
Orlando.
Yes. And then 2020 was supposed to be in New Orleans, and that got to be cancelled. So
that's right.
I had flights and everything booked already. So unfortunately, that got cancelled. But those are actually really good to do. So the coming back on Antonio, what you're saying about the community and meeting people, it is a lucky or really great that we're heading to a direction that we have more and more events, and we're getting more people. Like next week, there's the MGM Las Vegas has the Power Platform conference for Power Platform people, and then Ignite, not as big, but is coming in November, and more conferences next year as well.
Because, we've got the ESPC, ECS. So there are also big events
ESPC,
here in Europe too. So it's also great to see them balanced out across the world and more, being more approachable to folks all over the globe.
That's right. I too miss the big Ignites. Like I went to every single Ignite before COVID, and I enjoyed those. I found the
as
best
long as it was not Chicago, right? Because of the Chicago venue was not optimal, but that's separate.
It wasn't optimal. I enjoyed the Chicago Ignite.
It was okay,
a lot of people didn't like it. I thought it was really good for me. I had a good time there.
It was okay.
I found the best way for me at the big conferences, I would spend half my time if I wasn't speaking, half my time in sessions, and the other half of the time networking and on the event floor. And I found
the
that
expo floor.
It was very valuable to be on the event floor actually, and to connect with people, to make those connections and shared experiences.
And I have to be super practical and just say it out loud. For Northern American people, it's completely logical, but for Europeans, it's always like networking. What does that mean? No, it just means that you go to the expo area and talk to people. That's networking. It's nothing more than that.
Oh my
Get to know people.
Exactly. We've got a lot of events this fall. Like the Power Platform Conference you mentioned last week, they have like 6,000 people or 8,000 people coming. Like it's like the SharePoint conferences of old. Like it sounds amazing. I'm not unfortunately going to be there, but it sounds pretty phenomenal. This Friday we have M365 Ottawa here in Ottawa. If I can put in a shameless plug,
absolutely,
of course,
which would be great. So we're I'm part of that organizing committee with a number of others, and we're looking forward to that event. We usually get a really great turnout at that one. And then I'm going to be in Europe in November for Lisbon, for M365 Lisbon.
That's good. Collab days.
Collab days. Thank you. Yes, that's the right term.
Yes. There's so many of these competing things nowadays. But it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Cool. I guess from a timing perspective, we need to a bit of a wrap up on things. Typically, what we also do here is ask anything interesting what you're doing this or next week. What's on your agenda, what you can talk about. Well, how does your day-to-day work look like? Obviously, the M365 Ottawa is happening.
That's right.
Actually, the weekend before we just released this recording, but still.
Good point. So what's my week like next week? So let's see. A lot of customer meetings, kicking off a couple of customer projects. We do a lot of a lot of projects related to Microsoft Purview, things like information protection, data loss prevention, records management. So we're kicking off a couple of those projects next week. I'm doing a couple of M365 security audits, or I have my team is executing those. So we've got a couple of kickoff meetings for those. And we start into 2024 planning as well. So a few sessions around planning our staff and our budgets and our, predicting our revenue for 2024.
AI.
So, yeah,
it's again that time of the year. It's come so sudden.
It does.
Oh my God, it's October. No.
Yeah. It's like November is 5 weeks away.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And then it's Thanksgiving, and then nothing happens. At least in Northern America, right? So that's how
Christmas and New Year, right? Like New Year's Eve.
No, but from a work perspective. So this is classic storyline. So.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of stuff happens. I've just always teased on the US people because, we have to do everything before Thanksgiving because nothing happens after that. What do you mean?
We get it back, right? Where in Europe, we're away for 5 weeks.
That's true. Summertime.
Good point. Summertime.
Never happens, but that's the idea, right?
That week also, we have Canadian Thanksgiving. So Canadian Thanksgiving, I think, is October 9th. So we have a holiday that day, but we are taking my daughter to check out universities. So we're starting to do university tours.
Congratulations!
Exciting times! Cool. Exciting times!
We'll see. Fingers crossed.
Yes, exactly. What about you, Waldek? Anything interesting on your table?
So next week, this week, as we're recording that, we're going to release a bunch of stuff. So next week we released everything if everything's went well. So it will be next cycle of planning and thinking about stuff. But other than that, researching stuff, preparing for the big mid or I think second week November we have Ignite. So that is obviously a big moment for us at Microsoft to prep things for. So that is a part of the ongoing work. But other than that, again, trying to look after developer experiences, trying to iron out as many wrinkles as we can. So that is kind of my job more and more these days to look out for all of these places where things aren't optimal and basically bring all of that to product groups and think about ways in which we can improve that.
Yep, makes perfect sense. Cool. I have.
What about you?
Well, no idea what's happening again next week. I've been dealing with random every single morning, waking up and catching up on meetings, and then need to jump on things. I right now. This morning was a really horrible one. I'm not going to go to details, but it's one of those things where you're listening and meeting recording, and then you're like, yes, you're talking about the pole of the fence and you're talking about the fence, but you're talking about two different things, and then your conclusions are wrong. And now I need to actually jump in.
It's an interesting analogy, Vesa.
I have no idea what you're saying. That is a Finnish saying, basically. You're talking about the same thing and not about the same thing. And then everybody is in a conclusion, but you're listening to that meeting and you're like, no, you're talking about the different things. You cannot, no, oh my God. Now I need to jump in and start cleaning that. But it's okay. So, and within 2 weeks, I'll be in Redmond as well for starting planning for next fiscal and not fiscal, the semester, meeting up people, which is always fun. It's been a while since I've been at the office, so it's good to catch up.
I've never been in the office, either local one or the one in Redmond. And I've been in Microsoft in October. It's going to be 3 years.
So you started during COVID, Waldek, at Microsoft?
Yes, October 2020. Yep.
Okay, and you've never been into the office?
No, so I've been at the campus, I don't know how many times as an MVP, and I've been here in the local sub office as virtual TSP way back when, I don't know how many times, but as an employee, I have never used my badge.
Wow. Okay.
That's cool.
It's still pristine, unscanned.
The next time you'll be on the door like beep 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 beep, please beep beep.
How does that work? Like, do I do it? Do I need to wave it?
Yes.
Do I need to?
It's been actually 1.5 years for me as well since I've been in Redmond. So of course, catching up on people, Las Vegas and meeting up on the conferences and the team. But it's actually a great testament also for the fact that you don't have to. There is no reason nowadays anymore. And yes, time zones are different. We need to adjust on things, and that can be adjusted. It's not a massive deal. Having this technology in place enables us to be successful even remotely. So it's really cool.
Absolutely. I don't think people have talked enough about how transformational this technology was. To have such widespread adoption and usage of Teams has allowed us to work from anywhere, right?
Sure.
From our homes. Like we used to do that, but it was sometimes a little clunky. But now it's commonplace. Everybody does this every single day.
Absolutely.
Right? Another
With the
great transformation.
caveat that we have no idea, at least how tall everybody is on my team.
Exactly.
Sure.
Well, I know
I
how
only
tall
see this,
both of you are,
this.
but yes, exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
we each other know, yes, because we've seen each other live, right? But yeah.
Unless
on my
you've
team,
shrank since then, you know. You never know.
That age tends to do that with you, yes.
Good.
I
Anyway,
had
I
that-
guess. Sorry, Anthony.
Oh, I was just going to say I had that experience a couple of months ago where I met one of my coworkers, a woman, for the first time in person. And we were on calls like this for like a year, and then I meet her in person, and she's like 6'2" in person. I'm like,
And you're like,
wow,
it didn't come through somehow. Yeah.
no, not at all.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Anyway,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyway, I think it's time to close up. Once again, we went way too long on the interview. This always happens. We're always trying to do the 30 minutes, but it just cannot get it to there. But so much fun to talk about. Thank you, Antonio, for joining. We'll get you back on the show within the future, definitely. Within 100th episode or so. We'll see how long we will keep on doing this and how many years. But we'll see. It should be good. No plans for stopping. But thank you for joining. Really cool discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Great to see you both, and hope to talk to you both soon.
Definitely.
Sounds good. And then we'll jump on the articles of this week. So thank you, Antonio. Excellent. Thank you, Antonio. Really cool. Thank you for the interview. It's actually really, really cool to catch up as well. It's been a while on having a chat. We don't travel that much on the conferences anymore, which is always impacting on seeing the people, right? I just had somehow reminded me I use OneDrive for a lot, and I love the new OneDrive consumer side because it actually sends you the reminders on things and what happened this day within the past years. And there was a nice picture from 2016, I think it was, from Atlanta with Irvin and Paolo and Radi and Frank Marasco and who am I missing? Was it that?
You?
I guess that's it.
Yourself?
Oh, that I was there as well.
I had a picture of these 5 other people.
Yeah. But it's actually interesting. So the before we go to the articles, for whatever reason, I was thinking this earlier today. Somebody referenced something on the SharePoint 2013. No, it was Spencer Harper had a picture somewhere in social media related on SharePoint 2013 enterprise deployment or whatever, and that was a great reminder that it was actually 10 years ago. It feels like it's actually more than that, considering the amount of changes which we've done within a decade. It really feels like it's like 2 decades, but it's like no 10 years. So
I mean, on the other hand, to be honest, like, it doesn't feel that, like, 2013 doesn't feel, at least to me, like 10 years back already.
True.
To be
That's
honest.
fair. But thinking about the technology innovations, what's happening between that time frame of 2013 and announcing the Microsoft Copilot and all of that stuff, and the machine learning and AI is like, wow.
Well, I mean, like, you go back a little bit more, and then you think about the Silverlight portal that we had on Azure.
Oh, yeah, true.
Talking about advancements, right?
And of course, the announcement is different than actually, I'm reading a lot about books about AI currently. So just, I'm over exaggerating myself with AI stuff. So that's my way of learning things. So when I walk with the dogs, I'm always listening more of books. Most of them are on I've listened to this before, but it's actually over, feeding yourself with the concepts and different perspectives, because then you don't actually get just the one book which is telling you this is the only way to things happen. You get multiple perspectives on what's actually interesting. But it's even on that one, even though we talk about the AI and Copilot, it's been taken 20 decades easily, up to 40 decades to actually get it mainstream to the level where we're now actually finally talking about the fact that it's coming as part of your day-to-day office work. So it's not like hey, ChatGPT last year, then we bought it and then we started doing it. No.
Well, it's
That's
actually
not
the
how
interesting
it
thing.
works.
I'm reading now a biography of Musk, right?
Yeah.
And in there, there's a paragraph.
Oh,
I think
that's
it
true.
was
Yes.
like top of mind. In 2012, he talked to Sam Altman, right? Who is the OpenAI
CEO.
I don't know if he's CEO. Yeah.
CEO. Yeah.
Or already then, I was back then totally oblivious to it. Like in 2012, like what did I do then? SharePoint 2013, like AI was not. That was totally not a thing for me. Right? It was nowhere near, being the commodity it is now. But it just shows like how long that's been a thing.
Yes.
And now we kind of think like, hey, this is this overnight thing. Well, it's been in making for a while now.
Correct. Absolutely, 100%. And it's not an overnight thing. And I think one of the key things, and I guess everybody agrees on this one as well, is just the amount of the technology power what we needed to have to make it mainstream. So, and that they talk about the cold winter of AI and all of that stuff, since they kind of invented how it works, but there just wasn't capacity. So the CPU and poor, technology power to make that work, because the predictability of the next words in the generative AI, that requires massive amount of CPU to make it, as fluent as it is right now in ChatGPT. So
yeah.
And now we're finally at the moment where we can kind of make it happen, but then I guess we'll have the similar challenge as with the COVID and Microsoft Teams and the online, moving into the online and remote work, where the CPUs and the technology will be also a bit of a slowness. We just don't have the capacity to everybody to use these things right away. So
yeah.
But it will be super interesting to see where we are in 12 months, or 18 or 24, 36. So it's
GPT-18 with DALL-E 25.
Yeah, but it's DALL-E 3 was announced last week, so as an example. But sooner or later it comes to be mainstream, and it's like, okay, so now we have cool-looking pictures, we get to cool things. It's like, yeah, but now they're even cooler. I don't need to have a 8K television. I just don't. I will have a 4K, which is already an extra. This HD, I don't know. So it's sooner or later you're basically running into this. Yeah, but now it's 16K, whatever. I don't care. It's good enough. It's and the same will happen with the generative images, all of that stuff as well. Because already today, if you have a look on the Midjourney or DALL-E 3, it's like, wow. But then DALL-E 4, even better. Better for
Better than what? Yeah.
Better than what?
Yeah. At some point, it becomes like we get improvements beyond what is relevant or what does you actually need.
Yes.
Yeah, and then it becomes like it's a cool thing for a niche, but majority is just like, well, shrug. Like, yeah.
Or then we introduce another thing which goes live, like the AI stuff. Yeah, that's the old stuff. Yeah, we don't care about that one. We have this new stuff. Now let's jump on the articles related on that one. That's a good donkey bridge, as we say in Dutch and in Finnish. Segue. I still don't understand how can that be the same saying in Dutch and in Finnish. So it's a donkey bridge. Let's start with the Microsoft Mesh. So kind of in the relation of technology. No, the Mesh was there was a lot of focus on Mesh and the virtualization a bit before ChatGPT AI went overboard. And I'm betting that this will come back for sure. I guess we had a bit more forward-leaning, thinking about the Mesh and virtual worlds, and then now we do the AI, and maybe we'll get back on the Mesh being the super coolest thing ever. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, we are announcing Microsoft Mesh, which in the public preview in October, including new Teams experiences. And this is, and I just forgot about again the application name. So I've used Altspace VR at some point. Yeah. So you had it written down because we talked about it, right?
No,
did you have notes?
I remember.
Your memory works. That's amazing. Yes, wow, that's
sometimes it does.
I guess I'm older than you, so I guess my memory is just fragmented from more. Now, but anyway, the Altspace VR, that was actually already really cool, but now we're integrating that then in the enterprise world, and this looked actually really nice. And even in Altspace VR, I seriously think that was a more immersive experience. So even within your computer in the desktop, your headphones on, you can actually hear the 3D voices and all of that in your head. You can hear the voices in your head.
Yes.
Yes, I'm older than you. Yes, I hear voices in my head. Sorry. But yeah, anyway, so it's you have that spacious audio and all of that stuff, and those are really, really cool. And so let's see how well this is catching on things. And apps of this, of course, there's also the generational thing. So younger people might be more willing and testing out these things than older people. Not saying that we are old, but still. Why are you not saying anything, Waldek?
I'm listening to you. Like you're on a roll. Like you're saying, like yeah. Listening to you, like trying to understand what you're saying. It's like, okay, yeah, if that's what you're thinking, perfectly fine. Yeah.
Anyway, that's coming to public preview. So looking forward on testing that one out as well. Then we had a typical monthly summary from the Microsoft 365 admin site. Again, testing out things, and there's a AMA for the Copilot coming up. So that's a good thing to remember on Thursday, September 28th. And that was actually already last week, now that we're recording that. But a lot of other announcements and links and references on that one. The same applies for the Microsoft Teams one. So another nice monthly summary on what are the new features and capabilities, what has been released. A lot of new devices again. So which is awesome, cool looking stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting. Like, I don't know where we stand, because like it seems like every week we're going back and forth, like back to the office. Well, remote is perfectly fine. Back to the office.
Yes.
So I think like we are still trying to make up our mind which one is it exactly that we want, and is it worth investing in rooms and the devices that we need to make it really inclusive for everybody.
Yep, absolutely. I just there's at least in US there's more and more COVID cases again, but what does that actually mean, and is it impactful enough, or what happens? And so it's interesting. So for sure. Then we had the introducing town halls in Microsoft Teams and retiring Microsoft Teams live events. So this one has obviously implications, but it's a more modern, live events broadcasting functionality. Even though it's not called live events, that was a super clear way of defining it.
Yeah, I wonder what is actually a difference between the two, other than name.
I think it's name, and then I think we're introducing additional capabilities and features and evolving this. It might be, I don't know the technical background, but I would not be surprised that this has been rebuilt from scratch for a larger scale. So basically every now and then we need to deprecate old stuff and then replace them with the new implementation. And this most likely is complete revamp from the implementation perspective, so that we are more future proven and we're able to then evolve that more efficiently in future. Attendee reporting is actually great. This one doesn't actually have that pictures, but we're getting a lot of insights. For example, attendee reportings and their reactions and all of those statistics and all of that stuff is getting nicely collected as well. So a lot of cool stuff in here. Then we had introducing Microsoft Lists, the MSA preview for iOS and Android. Waldek, help me. What is an MSA? Why are we doing
Microsoft account? So these are the personal, the Hotmails from the past that we had, that you can use these basically for a personal use of lists.
Correct. So basically, this is the how would I put it, consumer side of the Microsoft lists. So not the business side of Microsoft List. I did have a chat at some point with Mark Cashman, because he's pretty close on the Microsoft lists, and the naming, kind of sequencing, and everything else. Not that Mark actually makes those decisions, but still on why are we using MSA? Because MSA is so technical term. But
if again, you know, but if you don't, you're like might be anything.
Yes, absolutely. But again, a lot of new capabilities, features for mobile. Great way of sharing, for example, shopping lists. We do a lot of OneNote sharing with my wife and family in general, because it's the easiest way to do tracking of things together. So if you are technical enough, so at least in our case, every single time I go to the grocery stores, I have a OneNote, which is already getting live updated at the same time when I'm at the store.
Why do you go to a grocery store?
To refill the things which we got and we didn't get by the pre-order. So
Oh,
there are
okay.
certain things. So there are certain things.
Yes.
So which you, depending on the shop and what are your preferences. But fair point. Good point. Good point indeed. Now the Mark Cashman also had the Mark Cashman. Why didn't it's the Mark Cashman? No, Mark Cashman had an article related on 365 Educon Chicago event guide. So Chicago is happening October 13th to November 3rd, and Microsoft has a big presence obviously there as well. It's one of those big conferences where we have a Microsoft-powered keynote with Liz and Mark. So that's looking really cool, and Microsoft AMA with a lot of Microsoft employees as well. So really, really cool setup as well. This week, by the way, don't actually cover that anymore because it's kind of old news, right? We have the Power Platform Conference happening in Las Vegas, so a lot of friends there as well. Now, on the developer side of the house, top 5 app source validation errors from Office Add-in submission, September 2023. Elizabeth is having this kind of a monthly summary on what are the things where people are typically failing. Great series for sure, to double checking that your application is up to date based on the guidance. Kelly Bowen McCombs had an update on the Microsoft 365 developer program. So a lot of new stuff in here as well. So making improvements for the developers, and then we're looking into multiple future things here as well. Please provide us feedback related on what you need and what's how can we improve this program as well. So yeah, I think the developer really program is critical for the developers. Need to have an access on developer stuff, right? Easily,
yes,
like a snap of a finger.
Definitely.
So. Now, Microsoft Graph Core Records API now generally available in GCC High and DoD. What is GCC High and DoD? Do we actually explain?
GCC High and DoD are our non-public clouds, right? So we have a cloud available for everyone, and then we have clouds for the government in the US, typically for highly regulated markets or industries. And I think, or I don't know if they're only the governments, the federal government in the US, but these are basically separate instances of the Microsoft Cloud that are matching the regulations that we have in countries with additional requirements when it comes to security and so forth. So
yeah, I'm. To be fair, I'm a bit bad. So something what really I can't help myself. I'm always paying attention on providing enough context. But this is a really good example. We do not even explain what is the high-end DoD environments in this blog post. So there's a certain level of assumption. Whoever reads this probably understands this, which is fine. But what if you
if you don't understand it, you probably don't need it, so you can just ignore it.
Sure, but maybe you are trying to understand more about the options and scenarios and everything else.
Fair
and
enough,
it's like, well, can I have a reference point? What are these? I don't know those terms. So it's same as the MSA term. It's like, okay, well, why?
We did explain it. There was a paragraph in the article, asterisk.
In the MSA. I saw that. But in here, there is not a context. Yeah. Context is missing, which is a bit of a bummer. And it's fine for those people who need to understand. They probably understand this, but still. Now, this one is from you, so you can actually explain new version of the developer proxy.
Yes, exactly. So another new version of Microsoft 365 developer proxy, which allows you to simulate any API in M365 and outside of M365 when it comes to its behaviors, responses, and mocks, right? So in the version that we have just shipped, we improved in kind of 3 main areas. One is the mocks, so you can have more powerful, more flexible mocks. 2, let me think top of mind. We allow you to test the latency of an API. So if you have or if you build an app, you can test how it will work when the API is slow, which could be the case. And then 3rd, slip my mind. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, 3rd was the ability to more easily test other APIs than Graph, because one thing that we learned is that the more we look at other APIs, we see that despite there being recommendations and common approaches, different APIs implement behaviors in a different way. Like for example, like if you exceed a rate limit, typically you will get a 429 response, right? Which says like you called the API too much, you exceeded the limit. Sometimes though, like there are APIs who will give you back a 403 or forbidden, which is like, I'm still authenticated, but apparently,
yes.
right? So
whatever
there are
standard
differences.
they're following. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, right? So depending on which API you test, you work with, you want to be able to simulate the behavior that matches the real API. So we kind of extended the proxy with the ability for you to be able to model that.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
TLDR, new version, largely improved. Definitely give it a try because it saves you a ton of time testing your apps. And not to mention, you will build better apps.
Yes, absolutely. Increasing the quality of the solutions for sure. Now, we did mention that Teams Live events is actually going to go away and replaced with the Microsoft Town Hall. And of course, the logical conclusion is then that we're deprecating also the Teams Live events APIs from the Microsoft Graph. So, and that will basically deprecation scheduled. No, we're using wrong terminology again. Sorry, the reason why I'm baffled is that deprecation means the API is no longer, we are no longer investing on something. Deprecation does not mean that we are shutting down the API.
Yeah.
So we are kind of confusing, we're using a wrong terminology within this blog post, unfortunately. We should be saying end of life is scheduled for September 13th.
Yeah.
It is deprecated starting today, so we're no longer investing. We do support that, but we're no longer investing on this API, and the end of life is September 13th, 2024. Okay, well, no can do. It's just unfortunate. Why are we doing this, Mr. Anyway, and then Carol had an announcement around the Microsoft Graph CLI for 1.0 release candidate now with the beta support, which is really, really cool. So CLI for calling the Graph APIs and operations. So awesome stuff from that side as well. A lot of insights and capabilities and how it actually works, and more documentation in the reference. Now, on the Microsoft, Power Platform developer blog, there was 2 blogs from April 1, which was Power Platform Global AI Hack Week 1 recap. So basically recapping what has happened in the week 1, and then there was another week, which was actually last week as we're recording this, but that's going to be published then this week. Week.
Yes.
But a lot of cool features, and of course the videos and the on-demand videos are available, so you can have a look on what was actually podcast live, and you can go back in time and check out all of the cool things what were actually done. So really, really cool. And also there was a Power Platform command line interface August update. So there's a lot of command line operations here and there, which is completely understandable. And there's an update on the Power Platform side as well with new capabilities, which is really, really cool. Now, you could argue, right, why don't we have all of this CLIs if we have Graph CLI? If the Graph API surface would be
because
enough,
not all APIs are on Graph,
correct.
Unfortunately.
That is correct, and that's a bit of a bummer, but we're heading to the good direction for sure. So now, Markus Möller had a great blog post on Use Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio to create Teams tab using single sign-on for SharePoint CSAM. Complex terminology, but basically single sign-on for SharePoint CSAM APIs in the Teams Toolkit.
Yeah,
because
so
not
if
all
you
of the
build
APIs
a Teams
are.
tab, and from the Teams tab you want to connect to SharePoint using CSAM for
client-side object model API
reason, you want to do SSO.
Yes, correct. And basically just looking into how that works, and again, not all of the APIs are unfortunately in the graph yet, so you might actually need to be forced to do this.
And also, not all APIs are on REST, right? So it's kind of like the third thing, like not on graph, not in REST. So you gotta use CSAM.
Yes, correct. Ilya also had a new blog post related on linking and unlinking multilingual pages in SharePoint. So this is when you are potentially moving between the sites or migrating things, you might have a requirement where you unlink the translation functionalities within a site. Now, as we were looking into this blog post, technically this is a hack, but you might actually run into a requirement to do something like this. This is not using any standardized APIs to make that things happen. But yes, it will work because it's basically manipulating the list item settings in the list item level on how the linking actually work between the pages. So
yeah.
But there's no native API within SharePoint, which would be like unlink or link the multilingual page, which would be the future-proven way of doing things. Now, you had a new blog post, easily handle long-running operations using middleware in Microsoft Graph JavaScript SDK. What?
Yeah, exactly, right? So typically the operations on Graph are instant, right? Like you want to get something or you change something and it's done, you get back a response and it's done. There are though things like the example that I have here, which is creating the Graph connector schema, which is a long-running operation. So you submit your change, you get back a response with a URL, and you poll the URL to get the status of the job. But then in your code, you have to wait until it's done.
Yeah,
I mean, you can write all of the code yourself, but then the caveat is that code, that waiting, pollutes kind of your main code flow. So it's really hard to understand what am I doing here, because you need to have the loops and handling and redirects and all kind of stuff. And the cool thing is that in Microsoft Graph SDKs, you have the idea of a middleware. So it's kind of a handler that you put in a pipe, and that runs on any request and response. And that allows you to do additional things kind of off the main flow of your app. So in your flow, like you basically say submit this change and wait. And you don't need to do anything else in the main flow of your code, because the middleware does it a bit off, right? So it helps you one, have the same logic across your whole app without having to duplicate the same code or have functions that you call, right? So consistent approach across your app, and then two, have the really clear flow of your app, because again, you don't need to handle the logic of redirects and retries in the main flow of your app. So this is really, like, if you ask me, a great way to improve the way you write code.
Yep, absolutely. Good reference blog post for sure. Absolutely. As you were promoting during the weekend, please, when you're writing something, write it in your blog. When you're answering to somebody, write it in your blog. So.
Totally.
Now, there was also a really cool new podcast actually getting started. So last week, which is the Copilot Connection. So talking about the AI and Microsoft 365 Copilot all up. So what does it actually mean? How does it actually work? And all of that. Not developer specific or anything, just the whole stack. And Kevin and Zoe Wilson and Kevin McDonnell are the people behind of that. So really cool. Check it out. Awesome episode for sure. There was also a new podcast on the Messaging Center show, Copilot on Windows 11, which is coming out, and a lot of other announcements there as well. Great podcast series with Daryl and Daniel to stay up to date on what's happening within the Microsoft 365. On the video side of the house, Shane had a video on how to learn to filter SharePoint columns in Power Apps, and super important thing as well, because SharePoint is widely used as the data storage within the business application, within the businesses, not that you should not always use SharePoint, but it is widely used for a simple applications. When there's a lot of dataverse and databases and all of that, absolute 100%. But for simple solutions, lists are actually suitable. And this is focusing on learn to filter SharePoint columns in those things. Daniel Anderson had a video on create a custom SharePoint landing page after an item is submitted to a list. So kind of a process thing on making things happen and walking through those scenarios. So creating a new site and a landing page based on operations towards the list. Really cool scenario as well. Thank you for showcasing the scenario-based approaches on these things. So it's really cool. Good. Then Toshit, part of Vai, had a really cool, a relatively long, so 42-minute long video, customizing SharePoint list forms with Power Apps, so beginner's tutorial. So we definitely need these kind of videos. So the classic thing is, should I talk about this thing? Because I know that some other people have talked about it. Yes, you have your unique perspective. You have your own learnings. You have your own approach. Doesn't mean that somebody has done it and you're doing exactly the same title video. The content will be the same. No. Somebody did it already 5 years ago. Well, guess what? Technology evolves. So
yes, and opinions
and
too.
Also opinions too. Yes, absolutely, 100%. And then the last video of today was the Power Hour with Laura and Jolie. Jobson around how to use Microsoft Copilot in Power Automate flows for smarter automation. That sounds actually really, really interesting as well. So it's cool to see the Copilot getting more and more present in the context of the work as well. So awesome stuff. Cool. I guess that's it for now. We already went through what's happening within this week. And I'm looking forward on traveling pretty soon to Redmond, catching up on things.
Good for you.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I was calculating that it's probably like 35th or 38th visit on Redmond.
Wow. I don't know how many times I've been there, but definitely not more than 20. Might have been 10 or so, but definitely not in 20s.
Yeah, it's been an interesting thing to see how the area evolves since 2008 until 2023 when I started actually traveling and visiting Redmond. So it's been this has been a lot of changes as well. So, but and it's actually nice. It seriously is at the level of dropping by at the office. So it's just like it's a long commute and it's not a healthy thing for the environment to use the planes and all of that for the commute. Yeah. But if you do that once a year, it's not too much.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe, who knows, at some point we will have electric planes.
True.
The same way we have electric
cars. They are
actually.
I think they're building them, but the battery is the challenge. So for sure. So cool. I guess that's it for now. Thank you, Antonio. One more time. That's like 25th time of saying thank you. That was really, really cool. Next week we'll have Sarah Haas joining us on having a discussion related on the work what she's doing. A lot of interesting stuff as well. But I guess that's it for now. Thanks everybody. Thanks for watching, listening. Let us know #PnP Weekly in Twitter or X when you are sharing something cool or creating something cool. And feedback is always welcome. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.